Is called to order. It is March 2nd, 2026. I'm first select person Christine Vitale, joined by select person Spalier and some select person Kravchuk. Ask you to all please rise for the pledge. Chief, will you lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is going to conclude the Board of Select Persons review of the First Select Persons proposed town budget. We're going to be hearing from two departments before we discuss the budget and move forward on votes. We didn't get to hear from our building department last week, so we're joined by Pat Mahoney, who can present his budget. And you can just tell what page it's on. 143.
Good morning, everyone, and I would like to say thank you for allowing me to push it out one week due to my time off. So I appreciate that. That really helped a lot, and we're going to dive right into it. I am going to start with the expenses first. We did cut a few line items, and a couple of them did go up small areas. One increase you'll notice is 56,140 special departmental supplies. It is a new code change year, and of course everybody knows we buy all new books, etc. Travel expenses, we are in a code year again with meetings, etc. So that will increase a little bit. As far as contractual stuff, we really have nothing to do with the salaries. That's waiting on negotiations, etc. for that. Did bring our IT budget down $2,500. Does anybody have any questions on our expenses or any
questions on expenses?
Hi, Pat.
Hi.
Do you feel like the online system is working well? Is it more efficient?
I think it is, and I'm speaking for myself, I know a lot of people, me as having been in the trades and now having been in the last 11 years an inspector, I wouldn't change it. I'd never go to paperwork again. We can do our permitting, we can do our work anywhere. It doesn't hold up things. We have a lot more time to do our review process, therefore getting more detailed. I think it's, is every system perfect? No. No matter what, if we went with OpenGov, they're all going to have issues. But this, I believe, for our town, for our department, I'm going to speak for, is the greatest thing we ever did. Old school guys like me have been doing it for 40 years. I want to come in, I want to give this paper. It takes a little time. Nobody likes change. But is it more efficient? Cost effective? 100%. I think we're catching a lot more detail because we have more time to review. I mean, we can do permits 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock, whenever. You can do a permit from your home. You don't have to be at town hall. There's not 11 people waiting at the counter, elbow to elbow, where we miss things. Now we have time to review.
It's good for the tradesmen, too.
It's good for the tradesmen. The public can go in, they can see their permitting. They don't have to wait till open hours. So it's basically our town hall permitting is open 24 hours a day. There's no close. So if you're not getting what you need, it's basically going to be your issue because we're on it, we're staying on it.
Thanks.
All right, so let's get to revenue. I'll give a little brief. This year was a good year for revenue. We had a lot of good projects that we had in the queue, a lot of hotels. We have a Porsche dealership. We have 280 unit apartment buildings. There's a lot of that stuff that's been in the queue that we could, kind of anticipate. This year, we don't have a lot of stuff that I'm seeing coming down the pipe. You know, we're hoping with the colleges that there's gonna be some, as everybody knows, you know, revenue is one of those things where we can say, hey, this is where we wanna be. But it's not a science to it. I did increase revenue on all of our line items because I think, you know, it's gonna be a good year. Interest rates are coming down, which means people wanna spend. We do have a lot of stuff in the works, a lot of stuff coming, but the bigger projects like we had last year in the queue, we don't see it. So that's where I think we're gonna be comfortable with those numbers, and I think we're gonna do okay. Any questions? Any thoughts?
Any questions?
No.
Wow, you guys are easy.
I just want to thank you. This year has been a busy year for you. And we are seeing a surplus in revenue for the current fiscal year. Appreciate there's been a lot of projects that have been approved, that have gone through TP&Z, but understand you don't necessarily know when you're going to be moving forward. So I imagine you're going to be getting more questions from other town boards, just in terms of if any new information
Yeah.
comes.
And I look forward
your
to
way.
the questions, but I just, so everybody here knows, I work 150% to make sure we get everything that we should get. We're getting good values, we're making sure that the stuff is all there. We have a lot of, but we want the building, we want it. You know, I'm really hoping that we're gonna have some good stuff this year, that we're gonna have, I'm talking to the colleges, they're talking about some buildings. We got a lot of growth going on in the town. I'm very excited to what's happening. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 4, town and/or DOE budget follow-up. One open item that we had at the last meeting was just the budget for the FCRD. So I think that we're going to, you have updated pages, and we're gonna let.
Good morning. Joe Gaudette, Director FCRD. Thank you for giving us the time to sort this out. I'd like to thank Tom and Ben for working with me. So I think we have a good budget here to present to you this morning. Just reviewing our revenue, I'm not sure what the page numbers are now with the new one, but you have it separately, I guess?
We got an updated, Frank, you should have that. I gave you the agenda, back up to the agenda. Do you have it?
These are the papers I
It's
have.
the paper clip.
The paperclip one. Here, on the second page.
Thank you.
Just for the public, there were some figures that had not been updated or it didn't take in Munis. So the correction, the pages that are in the bound book needed to be updated and provided that to the Board of Selectpersons, just so they have the most up-to-date numbers. Okay, back to you.
Thanks. So we'll start with revenue. You'll see the other subsidy has increased by 22%. That's the addition of Easton. Their annual fee now will start on July 1. The state subsidy, you see it's increased by 73%. That includes the addition of Easton, plus we become eligible for a capital grant of up to $88,000 from the state as a result of adding Easton and becoming a true regional center, and a $15,000 training grant. So that's where that 73% in revenue comes from. And we'll talk about that when we talk about expenses. And then finally, this transfers in, that is the town of Fairfield's contribution, and it represents a 3.62 increase. Any questions about revenue? Okay. So expenses, when we come to the top part of the expense line, you'll see that the payroll is a little bit less than we budgeted for last year. We had been holding 3 positions open for the Easton full-time dispatchers. None of them decided to come over. Actually, they've all been offered, 2 of the 3 have been offered jobs by the town of Easton, other jobs. So none of them are coming over. So we're going to be hiring 3 at the lowest level. So we're going to realize some savings there. And then the next line, the 51,050 is our administrative overtime. It's been returned back to what the FY '26 budget level was. Our next is this is the replacement overtime, the 51,055. So our table of organization is built for the minimum amount of staffing, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So in the past, before Easton, actually currently, right, before Easton, we would have 6 people assigned to come to work on the day shift and the evening shift. If somebody took a day off, on certain days of the week and certain hours of those days, we would let it drop down to 5. We would let the manpower drop down to 5 instead of 6, and then not replace that person. With the addition of Easton, while we didn't add any numbers, we didn't add any bodies to the table of organization, our plan is to replace everyone who books off. So if somebody's going to take a vacation day, we have to hire to replace them. So we'll keep 6 in the room at all times. So we anticipate a little bit of an increase in overtime as a result. So that's where that number, that 575 number comes from. Holiday pay, that represents what we've been budgeting and our historical payments on those holidays. And then the training, you'll see a big bump in the training because we're going to have to cover new hires. We've got 3 new hires coming on board, and we've received $15,000 from the state to provide training. Our people get paid to train, so we need to pay them. So that's why the bump. We've actually moved some money from the replacement training because we're going to have 3 new hires and put that down into the training budget. And then finally, the pay differential. I think we missed that last year with the new contract a year plus ago. Our employees get evening shift differential and midnight shift differential, and it was significantly increased. And I don't think we budgeted appropriately for it. So now you'll see that this budget, I think, appropriately reflects the amount of money that we're going to spend on pay differential because they're going to get it, right? So we know that 6 people are going to get it, 8 hours every evening shift, 365 days a year. Somebody's going to get it. So we budgeted for that. And then the longevity step, that was a calculation made by Ben, life insurance, Social Security, and then retirement. So those are the highlights on the top. I can tell you that the big numbers towards the bottom, errors and omissions that's not my number. I guess that's Ben's number. Special departmental supplies, it's a 25% increase. It's $2,500. Our headset vendor is going out of business. So we need to replace all of those headsets with different ones. So it's going to represent an increased cost next year. The training, you see the $15,000 amount, it's up 233%, but that's going to be 100% reimbursable from the state, and that's reflected in our revenue side. And then the travel and meetings, again, is up 100%. That represents the cost, and it's 100% is $1,200. And that represents the cost that the state doesn't reimburse. The state will reimburse us for pretty much everything, but things like taxis, parking, gas, they are not reimbursable. So those I intend to use for, this line I intend to use for the not reimbursable items from the state. It's pretty much the highlights there.
Can you go over the capital outlay?
Capital, did I miss that? I apologize. So I budgeted $176,000 because as a result of becoming a truly regional center, the state will make $88,000 just in the next fiscal year available to us for capital projects. But that 88 represents 50%. We have to provide matching dollars. So that's the $176,000 is budgeted. understanding that we budgeted the revenue of the 88,000 on the other side. So the true cost of the town is going to be $88,000. What are we going to do with that? So it's time to start replacing servers already, 4 years into it. I know the town has a little bit longer usage plan for their servers because ours are used a little bit more 24/7, and because they are public safety, they are critical. We're presenting that we would like to replace them on a little bit of a faster timetable than the town does. And also, the room was designed by people who do not dispatch. That's the best way I can explain it. So we have 10 consoles in the room that are set up in a particular way that really doesn't meet the workflow of what we're doing. And by adding Easton, it's gonna even more so not represent the way we do business. So we'd like to engage the console company to actually redesign the room using the existing consoles. I don't know what it's going to cost, honestly, but I don't think it'll cost $176,000, truthfully. So that's my plan for the capital money if we get this.
Any questions?
So what do you mean, Joe, that, like, what's wrong with the way it is?
So it's so we have 10 consoles.
Yeah, I've been there.
Okay, so there's 3 on one side, 5 on the other, and then the 2 in the back. The 2 in the back don't get used at all. I think they were intended for supervisors, but honestly, nobody uses them. There's a treadmill on one of them, so sometimes people, if they feel like moving around, they'll stand on the treadmill and work from there. So what we're proposing is that we move those 2 back towards the other side of the room. That opens up some space for what could become like a quiet room for the dispatchers. They have no break room. They have no place to go if there's a bad call or something and they have to get up and walk away. There's really no place for them to go within the facility that we work in. There is a library, but it's truly a library. I can't believe how many kids actually use that library. I thought, in this internet world that they just stay in their room and just use their computers, but I guess it's a nice quiet place for them to be. So there's a lot of kids in there a lot of the time. So this will give us our own space to actually go in and take a little break, turn it off for a minute if they need a break. And then instead of the design that we have, we're talking about making more of pods so that people are interactive, communicating visually, and they don't have to get up and yell across the room. So it would just increase the workflow better, I think, or increase the ability of them to provide good workflow.
That makes sense. The health insurance went up quite a bit, almost 15%. Was that due to the change in the insurance carrier?
I don't know.
That's in line with what's happening at the town level. We're up about 14%. So that represents an allocation to FCRD of their portion of the insurance cost.
But I thought when we were talking about the change in insurance, we had a cap of 13.
It's 14. It's 14.
Well, and also other, I'm assuming that there were open positions in fiscal year '26.
We're going to be filling
We're
them.
going to be filling
So
them, and that's
that
going
makes
to
sense,
also-
yeah. 3 more
also add
people.
to the increase of the health insurance line item for FCRD, because they had open positions that people weren't getting health insurance.
But we are capped at 13 under our contract.
13 and 14. Yeah. Yes.
And the pay differential, I know you went over that, but that is up a lot.
It is. So pay differential is $3 an hour for evening shift and $5 an hour for midnight shift.
That's because we had vacancies and people had to pick up more times, or?
No, this is money that if you're working an evening shift, you're going to get paid that extra $3 an hour. And so with the increase in the the table of organization, those 6 people who work evenings every night are gonna get $3 extra per hour
Right.
for 365 days a year. I just don't think it was properly calculated before. But Ben and I took the time to actually figure out, okay, well, what is really this gonna look like? And when they get paid time and a half, their differential is time and a half too. So the $3 becomes $4.50, $5 becomes $7.50.
And Ben, can you explain about the errors and omissions? 46%.
Well, it's up, excuse me, $102 to 46.15%. That's the allocation from the town's errors and omissions policy. It encompasses several insurance policies. It's not just that one line item for errors and omissions. It's E&O and other insurance.
Other questions? Any public comment on the XCRD budget and also the building department? I think I forgot to ask for public comment for that. So if you have any public comment on either one of these 2 departments?
Thanks again for giving us the opportunity to straighten this out. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now that we have the updated budget before us, either Mr. Harris or Mr. Bower would just explain that there was a shortfall in terms of the previous budget that was presented. So we took a deep dive into the budget to try to see line items that maybe we could find additional savings or just budget a little tighter, and we were able to find an offset. I'm going to let one of our, either Ms.
I will give you just an overview, and Ben can walk through the details. We received updated calculations for the contributions to some of our benefit plans from Milliman on Friday evening. We received a formal report on Sunday. So as a result of that update, we have additional savings in the town's contribution to some of the retirement plans. That savings is being allocated among the town, WPCU, and FCRD. We also have, as Mr. Barbera mentioned last week, we're in discussions with our insurance carriers, and we anticipate that there will be savings from what's in the budget there. And we realized a portion of those anticipated savings to fully offset the adjustment for the change in FCRD. And Ben can walk through the object items if you want to.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Do you have this particular page?
You have do you have a copy of that?
Get that paper and that way. Expecting to get it.
You have details of that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, excuse me.
We'll just walk through the object
Yep.
change.
I wanted to give them a chance just to quickly peruse it. So you will see on the first page, the adjustments that the police department had requested for information technology and tactical equipment and supplies, the 4,500 that they had mentioned. That has been added, but the risk management components, they're the next 3 line items: property insurance, errors and omissions and other, and liability insurance. That sums to about $140,000 to the town's benefit. And then the Milliman adjustments. The town OPEB did change to the bad for 26,000, but it's offset by police and fire OPEB of almost 78,000, and then retirement for the town and the police and fire of about 168,000. That is all offset by the transfer out of 368,471 to the FCRD to make them whole. So their budget balances. And on the second page, you can see the adjustments made to the FCRD on the three revenue line items, as well as the expense items that Mr. Gadet walked you through.
Any questions on the adjustments? And when we move to a vote on the town budget, we will take this detail as an amendment to the town budget, just for the reallocation between the different line items. And also, just for the WPCA also, that was,
They had a benefit from the Milliman in the amount of $6,416.
any questions? So basically, the change in Milliman, and taking a deeper dive, as Mr. Barbera reported, and speaking with the insurance carriers, just getting a better rate, has led to an offset in some expenses, which will counteract the FCRD increase in some expenses. And as well as also cover the two items that were missing from the police budget due to a miscalculation, we think. All right. Are we clear on that? Okay. All right, so now we are opening it up to just budget follow-up. Any questions? Discussion?
So I don't remember which day last week we were discussing the outside job fund and how we might be able to meet the needs of the police department for the 5 additional cars.
First, I think I mentioned that there's a requirement to keep the fund balance at a floor of $1 million. That really is not in the official policy. The policy states that if the balance is more than $150,000, there has to be a formal report to the Board of Finance. In terms of the use of the funds, it allows for the purchase of 10 cars per year was the projection. Right now, the balance in the fund is about $1.4 million. We work with the police department and looked at their projected purchases over the next couple of years, and if you assume that they purchase 10 cars per year for the next 2 years, they would be basically at about a deficit. So unless you wanted to accelerate the purchase of the vehicles and not purchase the planned 10 vehicles per year, there would not be funds available to do that right now.
And can you explain how you're calculating that? Because I thought the 10 cars was, what, 7 something?
Right now, it's about $1.3 million, and we work with the police department to project revenues for the next 2 years. And if you assume that you're buying 10 cars a year, by the end of 2027, there would be a deficit. I think those cars you assume the individual cars cost $80,000 to $90,000 a year. So that's $800,000 to $900,000 per year in terms of vehicle purchases. And again, right now, the balance is 1.3.
according to the document you gave us, it was 1.6.
I'm sorry, as of June, it's 1.6 now. If you project that out, though, by the end of 2027, there would be a deficit.
Is that taking into account what the chief said about how it kicks up in the spring?
Yeah, we work with them to develop projected revenue numbers for each year through I actually went out to 2028.
Can the chief speak to this?
We work with Eddie, yeah.
We can have the deputy chief. And before, just as he's coming up, we're doing this through the budget process now because the request came in. But if, over the course of the year, there's more money in that fund, would we be able to go to the Board of Finance and just ask for a transfer, like mid-year, if there's really no time constraint on when
Correct.
these cars can be purchased? Okay, right.
So thanks for giving us an opportunity to speak on this a little bit more. To your question, the revenue projection was conservative because we were not taking into account that it does kick up in the spring months. So the projection is really based on the data we have available now. So if we have 9 months of data, we're just kind of like projecting that out over 12 months, but we do know that it will spike in April, May, and June. So like I said, that projection is conservative. But the other thing that we noticed that is kind of hamstringing us is if you look at the two different revenues, one of them comes from officer fees and the other one comes from vehicle fees. So all of that revenue is generated off the backs of the officers who are doing the outside jobs, but there are two different paths that those revenues follow. The officer fees go into the outside jobs fund. So that is somewhere to the tune of, I guess, did it look like 250,000 this year?
Right.
And what we're seeing is this decline in the balance of the outside jobs fund. On the other end are the fees that we collect for motor vehicles. Now, the path that that revenue follows is every month in real time during the fiscal year, that gets deposited into our maintenance and repair of automotive budget, and we use those funds to repair our vehicle fleet. The problem is we start the year at a almost negative $200,000 balance in that budget line. So that is not to our advantage. And what would happen is if we zeroed it out, which was something that we did talk about that we would really like to do, we'd probably see about $200,000 in favorability at the end of the year, which we would like to see get deposited into the outside jobs fund so that it's sustainable. Does that make sense, or did I lose everybody?
Sorta.
Okay.
So that the outside jobs fund is sustainable. not-
So that the outside jobs fund is sustainable and we can continue to purchase the vehicles that we need every year. So in other words, we're starting the year in maintenance and repair of automotive at a negative $200,000 because there's an anticipated amount of favorability. So the vehicle fees each year is generally about $450,000 in revenue, but our repair expenses are about $250,000. So that would leave about $200,000 in favorability at the end of the year. But if we're starting the year at negative $200,000, we don't see that revenue at the police department. We would prefer to start that line at a zero, and if we have $200,000 in favorability at the end of the year, instead of that going into the general fund, we'd like to see that go into the outside jobs fund.
Oh, is that what happens? It goes into the general?
Yeah, and that was I think there was a mandate from the Board of Finance a few years ago in terms of putting in that negative variance for materials and maintenance or repairs and maintenance because of the favorability that they anticipated at the end of the year.
Right, but during the presentation by the police, I mean, they're gonna have 5 new officers without appropriate cars. So I don't know that I don't feel comfortable about using that money into the general fund when it can be rolled back, especially since they earned it.
It may be an issue of rewriting the policy, though.
That is a policy, a written policy?
It's well, I don't know if it's a written policy, it's a practice that was put in place by the Board of Finance, which predates me, so we can follow up with it. I haven't seen a written policy.
But what we would like to do in anticipation of that is we would like to start that line at a 0, which would buy us some time to take a look at the policy and get something in writing that the favorability would go into the outside jobs fund versus the general fund.
The current budget right now assumes that we begin the year with a negative. So if we adjust that number, the budget will have to be adjusted.
So maybe we could just send a recommendation to the Board of Finance to review this and
I mean, I would be supportive of that, being that the Board of Finance set this policy.
Yeah.
I think it would be beneficial for them just to hear from the police department.
I mean, bring it up during your budget.
And definitely bring it up and depending on, if the revenue projections change, looking at purchasing cars, sooner rather than later, if possible.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously would be supportive of that. I do have concerns, especially what's been going on, and our officers have used cars that are substandard, public safety issue.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we're also looking at insuring the cars,
Right.
looking at insurance policies. You want to report on that? I don't know if I can't remember if you reported to this board, but I know you reported to the Board of Finance just to make sure that everybody.
Absolutely. And obviously, it saves money, because if we have, the new cars, to Chief Ferris's comment during his budget, we have a warranty on those cars for 3 years, so.
Just for everybody's quick background, we presented to the Board of Finance to purchase an auto physical damage coverage, which is damage to our vehicles, which currently we are self-insured for the police department vehicles. And we reported to the Board of Finance that it was not to exceed $90,000. We received some really good news from the insurance company that quoted us for that, in the sense that the maximum, depending on the deductible option we choose, would be no more than $40,000-ish and change to insure all 115 police vehicles for auto physical damage. There's 4 deductible options that we just simply need to select which one we want to bind coverage, and we can start coverage mid-year or July 1st. It's just a matter of making those 2 quick decisions. But we are able to realize about a $43,000 immediate savings to the budget. Potentially a little bit more.
So we're looking at that.
Good to hear.
Any questions?
Yeah. 3. Any other questions, follow-up?
No.
There was a follow-up. There was a question about the status of FOIA requests. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, yes.
No.
Getting work on.
I'm getting my steps in. All right, so at the last meeting, Selectperson Kupchak asked or brought up a question or concern regarding responses to FOIA requests that the town has received. So we did a little bit of a deep dive, and what we found in terms of response. So there's really 2 types of responses for FOIA requests. There's the initial communication back to the requester, and then there's also the time from the time of the request to the time that the FOIA commission considers the request closed or satisfied. So currently, we're seeing in or around 900 requests a year to the town. And 75% of those requests have an initial response within 7 days. So that's around 728 of the 900 that have a response, the initial response back to the requester. There are 78, this past year, there were 78 FOIA requests that exceeded 30-plus days from the initial response. The reason being will fall into one of three buckets. The first was the data is not available yet. So either it might have been an open investigation, it might have been an open accident investigation from law enforcement, there could have been some sort of reason, open insurance claim, whatever it might be, that information couldn't be put out until that first initial reason was satisfied, and then it was able to be brought forward and responded to. Second was redaction. So some of these requests have large data sets that are being asked for, and there has to be a review and redaction. So that has taken some time. And then again, because most requesters prefer to get everything in one response versus piecemeal multiple throughout a period of time, when requesting data from other departments, even outside of the police department, to compile that information, redact that information, compress the information so it could be sent electronically, has taken some time. When we go to the response to close date, we are still in that 70% time frame where responses are closed within typically 7 days to 30 days. We're seeing about 70 to 75% of that, with a few that go beyond 30 days. The reason for those that go beyond 30 days could fall into a couple areas, such as we are now going to a hearing for whatever reason. Either we've denied the FOI request, or some reason, again, one reason why we're not giving the FOI out, and it's gone to a commission hearing. That could add substantial time onto the closure of a request.
When you say 75% get responded, that's just a we got your.
It could be a variety. It could be we got your request and confirming what they're looking for. It could be we've received your request and it's a simple request and here's your information. Let us know if you need more. It could be a variety of types of responses. But the FOI statute just simply says acknowledge and respond promptly. So the effort has been, or the practice has been, to get that initial response, to confirm what they're looking for, and if we can get it to them sooner, get it to them within that 7 days. Sometimes we say, hey, we may ask, or our FOI person may ask, is this what you're looking for? And it turns out through the conversation that it's something else, or there's an addition to it. And then the person will go through and gather that information. That adds a little bit of time. But that initial request could either be closure or confirming what they're looking for.
So, for example, if there was a FOI request within just town government, correspondence and so on and so forth, did that take close to a year to get responded to?
Honestly, I would have to look into that specific request. Our goal is not to take that long. Again, there are some variabilities to it. There might be redactions. We may be having trouble getting it if it's somebody's personal email, if they're using it and we're trying to go through their personal email to siphon out. There could be a variety of reasons to that. But I would say that that's an exception and not the rule. And if there is a specific request that we can look into further regarding that, we could definitely look into further.
How many FOI cases did we have to go before the FOI commission?
I would have to get you that number.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Ms. Kopchak, any other discussion? Does anybody need a break before we go to votes?
Are we going to have a follow-up on Board of Ed?
If there's questions, we have the Board of Ed here. If there's any, we had the superintendent and the vice chair, Mr. Asa, joining us just in case there was any follow-up questions. I don't think we had anything open. We're waiting for answers back. We have gotten a lot of emails from parents, just advocacy for the education budget. Just again, a recap, proposing a $2 million reduction to the ed budget. We found around $450,000 and an offset for pension savings. So looking right now at a reduction of 1.5. Obviously, numbers can change. Part of the Board of Ed, this is a recap, just don't want to relitigate everything. The Board of Education at this time is looking at a surplus in fiscal year '26. Granted, that may change based on snow removal and utilities, but hopefully that will stand, and that would give the board the opportunity, if they so chose, to either pre-purchase technology or textbooks. The superintendent reported that looking at technology, maybe purchasing sooner rather than later, realizing, I think it was a savings of potentially $90,000 if that was done earlier. In years past, having served on the Board of Education, very often textbooks are pre-purchased in the spring for a variety of reasons, both to offset if there is a reduction to the next fiscal year's budget, and also if there's any curriculum writing that needs to be done over the summer. Very often teachers like to have textbooks in their hands sooner rather than later. But that is where we are, in just in terms of my rationale, and continue to advocate to the state for, ECS funding, excess cost reimbursement. The school district participates in the state's the Connecticut 2.1 Hope Partnership Plan. So any change in rates, either way, will have a budget impact. But that health insurance number is large for both the town and the Board of Ed. So continued advocacy at the state level to maybe help with that rate would be a benefit to not only Fairfield, but other school districts that participate in that plan. So that's where I am, but if you have any questions specifically, also the change, there was a discussion about the change in elementary school schedule. Don't want to go too far down getting into Board of Ed, but there's been discussions at the board table of changing the elementary school schedule for the next fiscal year, what that schedule will look like. I believe the board is still discussing that, and I encourage parents who might be listening to tune into, when's your next Board of Ed meeting? March 10th? You discussing it at that meeting? Maybe? Well, I would just encourage just to follow the Board of Education, and if there is a change in just minutes, there could be a savings just in terms of how staffing is reallocated.
Just to answer your question, it is not anticipated to be discussing financial aspects of any savings, just the heart of the matter of the actual schedule itself.
And I think that's important, that this, in terms of the elementary school schedule, it is being done not to fill a budget hole from the Board of Education, but really just looking at the approved curriculum, how many minutes there are in the day, making sure that teachers can have the time, bless you, the time they need to deliver the curriculum and help our students achieve their educational outcomes. I don't think it's the purview of this board to say what that schedule will look like, but appreciate that that discussion is happening at the Board of Ed level. And for me, just forecasting out, I'm cognizant of trying to balance the very needs of this town, of the community right now. It's a tough budget year with the reval, and appreciating that every town department has seen some sort of reduction, trying to be as forward-thinking as we can of where there might be potential savings, not only for the Board of Ed, but for all departments. If a schedule change, well, again, this was being driven by the Board of Ed solely for educational reasons, and I'm going to give it to you. I just think that if I think that there might be a savings coming, want to just try to capture that for our taxpayers and for other town boards to further the conversation. So feels like it starts with me, and bring it to you ladies for discussion, and I'm going to give the superintendent the floor to correct anything that I said that might be wrong.
Well, I think that just based on the volume of emails we've received since the end of last week and all throughout the weekend, and even this morning, I think that they should talk to us and to the public about what we're looking at.
Well, the only thing I want to clarify regarding the schedule, that will impact any attrition savings that was built into the budget through retirements and such, because if there is a reduction in any positions as a result of the elementary schedule, those folks will then bump into an open position. So any attrition savings that would have been assumed from retirements to hiring at a lower pay step will now disappear, because we will be maintaining staff that are being paid near the top or at the top of the pay scale. So I just want to make sure that's understood as well, because we can't have one without realizing that the savings through attrition goes away.
And I thank you for that. I think it's important to get that on the record, that if there is a change in the schedule, that it just means the teachers will be reallocated within the district for another teaching role. Is your anticipation right now?
That's the goal.
And that, so.
No one loses their position in the district.
And you've reduced FTE in
Correct.
this budget, by how much?
Almost 11.
But some of that is due to attrition that you know just because of changes in enrollment at the different levels.
Well, some of them are just
And decisions you just made in terms of
Just,
the running of the district.
reallocating responsibilities to try to keep the budget ask under 6.
So, based on our conversation on the education budget, there was a lot of discussion about how you don't think there's gonna be a big surplus based on snow and some other maintenance things that happened, and, so if this isn't adjusted throughout the process, only actually at the Board of Finance level, because they're the only ones that can add money back in, well, what are we looking at?
Well, the only thing, sorry. I'll just stay up here. We'll have to take a look at programs. We would also have to then come back to the town for any unanticipated maintenance projects next school year. So for example, this year, as we shared at the meeting last week, we encumbered already $515,000 of unanticipated expenditures and maintenance that we've been shuffling money around to cover. We did that last year as well. There won't be any room for that next year. We'll just have to come back to the town. So just to forewarn, because I don't want then folks to say, well, you didn't budget properly. We have budgeted properly, just some things are just unexpected. You will be receiving, if you haven't received yet, a letter from our maintenance executive director, because there is an unanticipated expenditure coming with one of the bonded projects over at Ludlow High School, for example. At the elevator project, that's going to increase the cost of that, and that was unforeseen until demolition of the existing elevator. So those are the kind of things that, when you get into the nuts and bolts of projects and the year, that things happen when you have 17 different buildings as well, so.
Mr. Asa?
Yeah, and just Nick Asa, Vice Chair of the Board of Ed. I just wanted to reiterate what I had said at the last meeting last week, in that our goal, of the board is to, have your board fully fund our budget. And as we move through the process, through the other town bodies, by the time it gets to the RTM, if there are additional savings that we do realize through anything that we've discussed in this last few days, that those would be fully transparent and made aware to those town bodies so they could make adjustments at that point. But to Mr. Testani's point, relying on the surplus and potential schedule changes is not the desire of the board at this point. The board feels that we passed a very fiscally responsible budget, and that over the last few years, that the trend has been to operate more on budget, and we have shown that, through the years. So that is our ask. Thank you.
And just for the public and the board, obviously, at the end of the process, when the board is going through the budget process, that was just my thinking. That was not at all, I don't want anyone to think that this is the way the Board of Education could potentially address any changes in the budget. And as the process goes on and the state budget, things do change. And other town boards, we are at the beginning of this. The Board of Finance will begin their budget deliberations on Thursday. And a lot can change. I'm not right now, and believe me, this is not at all easy for me as a former Board of Ed member and chair to reduce the education budget. But looking at it now, just being cognizant of all of our town departments, wanting to balance the services that our residents rely upon, and being cognizant of just what a difficult year this is budget-wise. We are not benefiting from past years where the town budget benefited from ARPA funding, minimum wages going up, health insurance costs are going up, and we're feeling it both on the Board of Ed side and the town side. So really just trying to keep that expense budget under the 5%, which is already a significant increase just in expenses due to some of those drivers. But open for discussion for you ladies, and if there's something that I'm missing in terms of offsets, always willing to have that discussion. But right now, I'm going to stand by the budget that was presented, and let the Board of Finance, as you said, they can reduce up or down rather than just doing a ping pong for these line items, that they're going to be taking a deep dive over the next 3 weeks in March.
Just for the public and all, I missed the budget presentation last week, but I did watch it same day later online. So all my questions were answered in that. And I just want to say that for me, I've been involved in the budget process for 8 years prior at the last level of this, where the RTM cannot add to the budget. I've always been supportive of the education budget. Our public schools are very important to me. I have a newly my son's a first-year math teacher at a high school level. I understand how important it all is. But being at the Board of Selectmen level, I see other things that are equally as important as education and life. We've really looked at our fire, our police, our public works. All of those are life-saving departments that we have asked them to not add to and made cuts to. And there's other life-changing departments in our department. Senior services is life-changing for many seniors, libraries, everything are all. So it's a really hard budget year. I actually watched the budget meeting from last year. We supported education. We added back into the education budget last year at the sacrifice of the town departments. We kind of said last year, or they kind of said last year, that the town would maybe get a little bump this year if they held off last year. It tends to be a trend. For me, the hardest part about reinstating $1.5 million right now is that we are already close to 5% increase. We have taxpayers that cannot afford that increase, which is not just a 5% increase because of the reeval. It's an 8% increase. It's a 10% increase. And it's really hard for me to look at that without seeing any offsets in the budget that can compensate for that at this level. The Board of Finance being at the first level of that, I know the Board of Finance can add into it. I'm hoping that through the process, they can look at things and find ways to offset and possibly add to your budget and find offsets with it. But I would really struggle to add money at this point into the education budget without having offsets on the town side. And it's really hard for me to do that because over the last 8 years, I've never supported a cut for the education budget, and we haven't been able to add money. I've never been in the position where I can add the money back in, but it's a really, really hard budget year and a really hard decision. Certainly, if Ms. Kupchak or anyone else can find any offsets to it, I'd be open to finding that, but I don't necessarily want to increase the rate of increase of our budget at this point for that. And I'm asking the Board of Finance, because they have a longer ability to look at it in more detail, more from a financial point, to really consider it so that they can add it back in before it gets to the RTM level. Because I do realize once we get to the RTM level, it's too late. So, but I think Board of Finance has some opportunities.
I mean, listen, I think it's too big. I think that Mike Giustani has really made an effort, as I think a better effort than in the past, to really tighten up and budget differently. I know when I was here, my CAO sat down with the purchasing and with the education to find savings. I mean, we found over $1 million in savings just by changing purchasing, which gave me incentive to make the reductions that I made, which then ultimately was just put back by the Board of Finance, majority. I don't think this, listen, I think there's so many things in this budget that I think can be modified. I think there's a lot of new positions in the budget in a year, to your point, which I don't think should be. I think, and I know positions were added mid-year before you. I know a lot of, I just want to say that, I know you're in a position of taking on an administration that you didn't necessarily create. And so there's that challenge. And I sympathize with you because it's hard work to put together a budget every single day, crunching numbers with your finance team, seeing how those numbers are changing. How can you plug in? Who can you give something to? Who do you have to tell they have to wait? It goes right up into the last second, right? But there was, come on, there was a whole department created outside of the budget process, and salaries and all this stuff and different little position here and then a half-time to a full-time, like all these sort of little things that just built up to more money, more expense. And so, as the minority member, I know what my power is here. And it's nothing. But I just feel that a lot more work could have been done. Just the simple crunching over the weekend, being able to fix, the dispatch center budget issue. So that also gives me some concern about what else might be off here. And yes, there was a huge turnover in our finance department, which, also presents a challenge in confidence about what we're looking at. I think the budget reduction is too high. And I know I don't have any power to change it. But I do, as Marcy says, would like to see the Board of Finance take and they're gonna meet way more than us, and a lot longer than us, and scrutinize each line and figure this all out. Maybe there's some revenue that we could get, to save. I know when I was creating my budget one year and, we were getting hit with a medical thing and we needed to figure out, and then we were able to pull interest. A couple days in, there was interest revenue that really offset us. We found it, and Jared came in and said, oh, and I was like, I want to kiss him. I was so happy because I didn't want to, I was going to have to cut because, to your point, Marcy, I was never going to put out a budget over 2%. Never. I just wouldn't. And that was my goal. Like, I'm sorry, but that's it. And I said, during this process, and it's not your fault because I know, it isn't. I said that we needed to be really careful, to your point again, about the reval. We had to keep it lean, and we had to suck it up for a year and make sure every other thing is tight and keep it at a very low rate until this reval's over and we see where we lay out next year. So I don't want to be an obstructionist, you know that. And I do want to thank you for, since you took over, your decorum in running our board meetings has been very refreshing. And I sincerely appreciate it. I was subjected to a lot of abuse of power. And I do appreciate having the ability to have normal meetings, discuss items. I do enjoy taking part, even though it's been very hard over the last 2 years. I do like being involved in our town government. I love this community, and I like to have input, and I appreciate you receiving it. Although I have to say, and I'm sorry, I really did want to vote on a bipartisan budget. It would have been nice. But I just think there's too much here that I can't understand really, And it's above my pay grade to try to fix it, to get it to 2. So those are my 2 cents.
I appreciate that, and thank you for both your comments. And like you said, information changes, and the Board of Finance will be taking a deeper dive and bringing a different skill set and area of expertise. So this is not the end. This really is the beginning. And to your point about revenue, we had, not to put it on our building department, but they saw increased revenue this year that was unanticipated. And I think as new information becomes available about projects that might be coming online, there might be some areas that could be adjusted as the budget moves forward. And, I don't want you to feel that even though that you're the minority voice, that you don't have any, all good ideas welcome, and appreciate the dialogue and trying to find, solutions, because I don't think any of us are really happy, with needing to reduce education, and appreciate the challenges this could potentially be putting on the school district, and look forward to continuing the conversation and the partnership. Thank the superintendent and the board for, the conversation, and continue to hopefully advocate at the state level to get some funding and a change in the insurance. And I don't think there was, just for the record, it was not $1 million in savings through purchasing.
It was.
No, it wasn't.
It was.
It wasn't.
Okay. All right.
But I want to say that the purchasing department really, it's just over the last couple of years with Mr. Tulin does a great job. And I asked, one of the first questions I asked the superintendent and the board, is there anything big, any big contracts that are going out to bid right now that there might be a savings? I think for your year, we're going out for OT and PT for special education that year. Nothing big contracts that are on the horizon.
Teacher contract.
Well, the teacher, I mean, that's different than, that's not this fiscal year coming up. It's the year after that, but just in terms of other contractual services that might impact some of the expense lines in the budget. Believe me, looked to find those types of savings, and it really, there might be some tweaks here and there, but no big contracts right now are out to bid. Health insurance, not easy. The board always looks at it to see if it's worth, going out to bid, but that's a big undertaking, and very often we've seen other districts go out, good rate the first year, not a great rate the second year, and of course you need to make sure that all the unions are on board with that as well for the school district. So,
And to your point, I think, if the Board of Finance takes a closer look at our revenue, our interest-bearing accounts, to see if we might be able to, and in the surplus, we've been running some really high surpluses. And, we've put so much money into the fill pile, which, we still don't really know what the hell. So maybe it's time to crack in a little to that, to try to help out, because we still have no definitive information about what we're going to be expected to do over there. I know we're going to have to do something, but it seems like these regulating agencies aren't ever going to let us know, which is unbelievable. I just think that they'll have that ability to look at those interest-bearing accounts and this fill pile money, because I know we have substantial money in there. And it's been sitting, so I'm sure it's earning something. Just take a closer look to try to plug that hole. And honestly, I think they really need to look at a lot of these new proposal staff. We pare down staff to, back to, 22 levels in some cases, in some of the departments. But I think they have opportunities to find some savings, enough to bring us down to the rate of inflation at least. Because we know, and to your point, Marcy, the reval has really impacted people, and people's taxes regardless, because of their house values, which is great, right? You want your house value to go up. I feel like, though, in the next year or two, just based on stuff I read, that housing is gonna slip. It's not gonna stay this way. And people will be stuck paying that increased rate for 5 years, even if their housing value goes down in the next year or two. So I think those are things that really I think Board of Finance needs to focus on, and try to keep that rate under the rate of inflation. And that's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, I don't want to, we just know they're going to take a deep dive. They're going to be having the same challenges that we have in terms of balancing the varied needs of our community, our school district, our town departments, our public safety, and just affordability for our residents. And I think that the reval, yes, housing prices, our values went up, which is great. We're a desirable place to live, in part because of the goods and the services that we provide to our residents that make Fairfield such a wonderful place to live. But we just need to continue to look at, and we're doing this, Mark Barnhart and his department, looking ways of just growing our commercial base and supporting our small businesses, and we have the Chamber of Commerce, because it's not only the values are going up, but just the shift that residential is taking up a larger portion. All right, thank you. Any other questions about the town departments? All right, so we'll move on to, thank you, Mr. Issa.
Mr. Issa.
All right. All right, so I'm going to rely on finance to make sure that I get these motions right. Because we did do some changes. So we're going to do, it's on our agenda to do WPCU, Fairfield Regional Fire, and the dispatch first.
Item 5. Item 5.
Yeah, we're on item 5 right now. To consider and act upon proposed revenues and expenditures, let's say, in the amount of it's $12,934,829, the right number for WPCU?
No.
Right. We have the change to.
Because, excuse me,
Revenue.
the impact of Milliman, their expenses went down by $6,416.
Okay.
What's the number?
The initial budget, though, I'm going to put the initial budget that's in the budget book on the table as the motion, and then we can make an amendment to take the Milliman into consideration. Okay. So to consider and act upon proposed revenues and expenditures in the amount of $12,934,829 for the water pollution control utility for the fiscal year of July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. Can I have a motion?
Was that the number or was,
So this is the,
was that the number in the book though?
that's the number in the, that's the budget request in the book.
That was 12,547, yeah.
Page 207.
Oh, my bad. All right, I'm gonna withdraw that. No one move forward. I was on the wrong page. Okay, again, to consider and act upon proposed revenues and expenditures in the amount of $12,547,269 for the water pollution control utility for the fiscal year of July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Follier, second?
Second.
Ms. Kupchak. All right.
12,934,829.
So 12,542,669, and now we're going to,
Yeah, they are different.
Proposed decrease of 6,416.
so now we're going, I would like to propose a decrease in Object 5231. Retirement contribution town. Of $6,416.
So moved.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay, second? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Can you give us the new total now for that? For W,
Excuse me?
The revenue stays at 12,547. The expense number is 12,928,413.
12,928,413
413.
is the new number. Back to the main motion as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 6. To consider and act upon proposed revenues and expenditures in the amount of $473,343 for the Fairfield Regional Fire Training School for the fiscal year of July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027.
So moved.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, back to the board for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. To consider and act upon proposed revenues and appropriations in the amount of, this is the
721,260.
for the Fairfield County Regional Dispatch Center for the fiscal year of July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027.
So moved.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
And to accept changes as outlined in, what should we call this?
The Board of Selectmen adjustments.
The Board of,
Schedule.
the Board of Selectpersons adjustment schedule.
So we're voting on.
So we're voting on it, we're voting, the amount hasn't changed. We're just voting on the line item increases to this updated page. Because what was in the budget book had the old numbers. So this, so this schedule, the number doesn't change, but we're going to approve that amount and to, in addition to accepting the changes as outlined on the schedule. Or we can put it forward and we can do the amendment. Why don't we just we'll put it forward with the amount, and then we can amend to accept the changes.
Okay.
All right, so. Again, to consider and act upon proposed revenues and appropriations to be determined after Board of Selectpersons, to consider and act upon proposed revenues and appropriations in the amount of $4,721,260 for the Fairfield County Regional Dispatch Center for fiscal year of July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. Motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay. I would like to make an amendment to accept the line item changes as outlined in the schedule of recommended changes to the Board of Selectpersons. I mean, the net is 0, but it just gives that line item for the expenditures.
647,530.
So it's here, so, right, the 647, that it's just this detail. Just so we're taking,
Do you want to say adjustments made resulting?
and it's the net is zero because we're increasing, we're doing revenue and expenses, so it's a net zero. The amount doesn't change, but just
Where they come from.
includes the detail of just where they come from.
Maybe make
So we're in the-
make the motion that with revenue adjustments in the amount of 647,530 added to item number 7.
But it's also adjustments to each of the expense lines too, which is why just rather than reading each one into the record,
Right.
just accepting this as the backup.
And
Right,
then
because we have the change in revenue, but we also have the change in all of these line items
Right.
as what was presented in the budget book. So
Right.
you guys have the
Say the addendum and then
the addendum.
say that we would post this
Yep.
for the public to be able to know what we're talking about.
I mean, it's the same amount, it
Right.
doesn't really change.
Just so they could see it.
And, okay. All right.
So.
We have a motion on the amendment and a second.
So the motion is
The motion is
accept the changes as.
to accept line item changes to FCRD income, revenue, and expense as presented in
ECC fund.
ECC
Fund.
fund detail, and then we'll post it.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, and just for the public, though, the revenue and expenses nets to zero. So the amount of the main motion doesn't change, but we're just putting those into the record. All right, all in favor
Of the amendment.
of the amendment? Aye. Okay, back to the main motion as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. All right. So we are back. We're on to number 8. To consider and act upon proposed revenues and appropriations in the amount of $402,990,150 for the general fund for fiscal year of July 2026 through June 30th, 2027.
So moved.
Second.
And can I have an amendment to accept line item changes to revenue and expense as presented in the ECC fund detail? Just because it affected the town budget too.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion
On the motion or the amendment?
on the amendment, just to accept this? Okay. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so these changes are in the record. All right, back to the main motion as amended. Any further discussion?
As I said, I appreciate work, and I genuinely did want to vote on a bipartisan budget, but I just can't vote for anything that's above the rate of inflation. And just reiterate, I hope that the Board of Finance can make some serious changes to this, so that we're at a lower number.
This is very, difficult budget year. I appreciate all your work on the budget and all of the department heads' works and everyone on the budget. I don't, in this budget, I didn't see really any new initiatives from last year in the budget, so I appreciate actually that I believe you've kept it as lean as possible. I hope the Board of Finance is able to find some changes that can adjust it. It's a difficult year, it's a hard budget to vote on this percentage of increase, and I hope as goes through the boards that we'll see a little bit of a decrease in the percentage. But I will support the budget overall. I think we need to move it along in the process.
Thank you, and I do want to say, just in terms, in full transparency, the one new initiative was adding the GIS analyst, and did that really just after hearing from multiple department heads that would use that service. We did decrease some of the asks for outsourcing these GIS services, so there was an offset to that, but did want to put it just out as a need. There were, to Ms. Kupchak's point, over the last year, just some positions that moved around that we got rid of part-time people, and they are now full-time person, the youth social worker. That is one position. I think that is a value add. In terms of the capital projects group, while it is a new department, that, again, it was not necessarily hiring new people. It was just moving people from one department to another to work on our engineering projects from start to finish, and looking forward to, now that all of those people are under DPW, look forward to Mr. Batista's leadership and just how our staff are going to work together on these projects. Engineers very much are on the design of projects. Our project managers oversee projects and see construction to the end, and it very much is a team effort, and value the expertise of all of them, and really looking forward to just continuing to streamline and look for efficiencies and moving these projects forward. The quicker they're done, very often we see a cost savings in that, and we've seen cost savings in some of these infrastructure projects. So really looking forward to seeing that work continue. I thank you both for the discussion and for all you do for our community and for your love of our community. I know we may not necessarily agree on the expenditures, but I think we're all coming at it from a good place. So look forward to moving this budget forward. Would have loved it to be unanimous, but understand where you're coming from.
Just a quick follow-up.
Sure.
Do you think now that we've had that department for a year, do you think we could get some kind of information pulled together about the cost savings that's been discussed so much, just to see, we saved on this project, we saved on that project? Because there's been a lot of discussion about it, but I don't think there's any tangible information we could see to determine.
Yeah, we can definitely have updates and just,
For all the boards, not just us.
Even I think it's a continuing, we have a lot of infrastructure projects right now, a lot of things. It's important, and it's exciting to see it move forward, but I think absolutely that it's important to have a better understanding. So anytime, if you need an update from our town departments, happy to have, just add it to our agenda for discussion only.
Right.
All right. I would just like, before we vote, I want to thank the finance department, Mr. Harris, Mr. Boveru, risk manager, all of our department heads for really putting forth and advocating for their budget. To Ms. Fuller's part, everybody saw a reduction. It's not easy, but really appreciate the teamwork and the understanding of where we are, and thank them for their work and their dedication to our community. And with that, we will take it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 2-0. And 2-1, sorry. 2-1. With that, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.